Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us, tmosso@the1916company.com. It is in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on our platforms. Reach out to tmosso@the1916company.com. Today we have one for the Breitling Old Guard. People who came of age with Breitling watches in the 2000s and 2010s will appreciate this large and cobra yellow Breitling Avenger Seawolf, 45 millimeters in diameter in steel. It is a fearsome submersible, second only to a missile sub. It's big too, 45 in diameter, 18.6 millimeters thick, and 54.9 millimeters from lug tip to lug tip, with a 22 millimeter spacing between the lugs. It's true that since 2017, Breitling watches have gotten a little bit smaller across the board, but if you liked that big, bold, outgoing look, and you want something that is no holds barred, but you don't want to pay Hublot or Audemars Piguet money, this gives you a chronometer, a diver, an insane amount of water resistance, and a watch that feels almost indestructible on the wrist. My wrist, which you see right here, 16 centimeters in circumference, and I'll let you decide whether I have the smallest wrist that can wear this watch or the biggest wrist that shouldn't wear this watch. Taking a look over the top, there you go. Taking a look down the barrel, there you go. It's not going to fit underneath the cuff, no matter how big you are. It is a large, loud, and proud machine. It's also, like I said, it feels almost indestructible in the hand. The bracelet, Pro 3 style, which means you've got the sort of diagonal orientation of the links, but then you have the larger links in the center. Everything here is in satin finish, which is in good taste because it shouldn't be too bright and bling given its size. Taking a look at the removable links, you can see that they are fixed by screws. We do have them on both sides of the clasp. Inside the clasp, we'll roll back in. You can see that there are several pairs of divots drilled in. So you can use your strap tool to change the anchoring point by dismounting the spring bar, and there are 4 different pairs of divots where you can change the anchoring point of the bracelet in case your fit adjustment increment is smaller than the individual removable links. Now, we have a single fold deploying clasp here with a clamshell lock, and you can see that Breitling was thoughtful here, putting a screw to fix the clamshell. So this is fixed in place by something that can be removed. So if the tolerances of this clamshell ever wear down, and it's not quite as crisp and snappy as it was, it can be removed during service and replaced with one that still has integrity. We have a conforming end link. We're not talking Royal Oak or Nautilus levels of end link conformity, but it does match the shape of the case, so it closes the gap effectively. The case is simple. We have these sort of tapered lug profiles. Lugs are integrated into the case band. Everything's satin finished except the bezel and the crown. You can see the crown. It is a screw-down crown with guards, and they're rather squared-off crown guards, but it has triple row knurling that makes it look as butch as the watch itself. The bezel, let's listen. You can hear it's a 120-click bezel. It's a joy to operate. Light to turn with a rewardingly distinct detent. 120-click, and then a couple of flourishes. First, you have these little rider tabs, as they're called, and they make it easier to grip the bezel when your hands are wet or sweaty or gloved. There's also a little polished chimney. You can see this polished ring between the bezel and the sapphire. So if the bezel does get hit, the chimney helps to prevent contact, hard contact with the sapphire, and this construction is distinctive of Breitling watches. Another feature that's distinctive of Breitling watches, you can see these little screws in the side of the bezel. This is called a captive bezel, which means you have to remove all of these screws to remove the bezel. It can't be snapped off the way an Omega, a Tag, or a Rolex bezel can, because it's not snapped on in the first place. It's put on and then fixed by the screws. So a very robust fabrication system that we don't see too many other places in the industry. Now, there is a helium escape valve, so if you're a saturation diver, you know who you are if you're out there. Well, inert gas enters your watch during the dive, and as you surface, it needs to be able to get out. And so when the internal pressure exceeds external pressure by 2 to 3 bar, this valve, which is flush with the case, automatically opens so that the helium doesn't blow out your seals and your crystal. Taking a quick look at the dial, this is what they call Cobra Yellow. There are a couple of different Breitling dial colors, and they all have names. Cobra yellow makes for a really high contrast. While they look like they might be appliqué, these little indices are actually raised off the dial base. They're integral with it, but with the color contrast, it's very easy to distinguish them against the dial base. And they add another focal plane. The hands at center are matte. All of this is pretty good at resisting glare, and the contrast in any light is quite high. There's also a feature that I think is important. As you can see, all three hands are luminescent, which means you know if your dive watch is running in the dark, and that's quite important if you're using it as a timing reference. And generally, the deeper you get on a dive, the darker it's going to be. So you can line up that enormous bezel pearl with the minute hand, and now you have a 0 to 60 minute count up timer. And I've often said, give me a dive bezel any day of the week over a chronograph. I find it easier to read, cheaper to service. And generally, all I need is I rarely time anything with the duration more than 60 minutes. So that's how that works. You can see that there is a scale on a flange inside the dial. If you want to read in 24-hour format, as long as you remember which half the day you're in, you can actually read the hour hand and use that 24-hour scale accordingly. We have an applied Breitling logo, the old Breitling winged logo, which is now retired. And as you can see, we have a hacking or stop seconds function, so you can set the watch to a reference time. Note 10,000 foot water resistance. Granted, 10,000 feet and 3,000 meters are not exactly the same thing, but it's close enough. You got to press the I believe button because everyone in Switzerland does that. There is a quick set system for the date. Around back, Breitling Avenger Seawolf, no joke. Chronometer certified. Inside we have Breitling caliber 17, which is a Sellita SW200, which is Sellita's version of the ageless ETA 28242. 5-position adjusted, automatic winding, bidirectional winding, hacking seconds, quick set date, 38-hour power reserve, 4 Hz beat rate, COSC certified Swiss chronometer, and so tested independently to exacting standards of precision. And the watch is very straightforward. A lot of capability at a reasonable price. Now, one fun feature you can avail yourself of right here, see where it says 4719 on the bottom? Well, Breitling watches generally have a date stamp between the lugs and on the bracelet that lets you know the week and the year it was made. So here you can see the 47th week of 2019, and that usually corresponds almost directly with the time the watch was made, so we can assume this watch is of that vintage as well. If you love this timepiece, reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.